Fitting trends into statistical methods of quantification, successive, regressive, or even neutral outcomes fit into the context of mathematical derivatization, making an objective observation or phenomena transformed into something meaningful. The scientific ANOVA and Holt-Winters methods used to quantify data make the analysis of information for structural, numerical data trends easier to realize. Before meaningful communication of data trends can be expressed and fitted into the next phase of statistical modeling, the information within the process and the data must first be grouped within specific definitions, such as in the quantification of a sample within a population of quantifiable data processes, positively characterizing information. The next phase within this process consists of utilizing the rules of analytical simulation to constrict and fit sample data within scientific matrices once the data has been approved and confirmed. When samples are properly fitted into a statistical or quantifiable method, a series of hypothetical questions, implications, and tests of confirmation can be either rejected or accepted. Findings are then qualified based on structural models or methods. In this presentation, I will be analyzing and evaluating the differences in the data between the European and the United Kingdom marketplaces for the International Expansion Project. The analysis of financial data was to determine revenue projections and market size. To determine the performance of the locations and the temperature of the market appetite for expansion, a survey was conducted that examined 4 criteria. These results were collected for all locations and consisted of a sample size of 100 data points per criteria. I will examine testing of a hypothesis, if there was a significant difference in the 4 criteria between the 5 locations, and I will demonstrate the use of t-testing, ANOVA, Sigel-Turkey, decision tree analysis, and forecasting methods to make the most informed decisions. Finally, I will make some recommendations about what actions the data and analysis suggested to me regarding international expansion to executives in the organization. And if there was a significant difference between the 2 locations in any of the market location criteria ratings, I conducted a t-test for the 2 United Kingdom locations and for all 4 evaluation criteria, and it was identified that all 4 categories had similar results. When looking at the statistics, the t-test was higher than the critical 2-tail, which indicates that the t-test was rejecting the hypothesis. The p-value, or alpha, was also less than 0.5, indicating that this test can be repeated with similar results. Ultimately, the results of these t-tests indicated that there was a significant difference between United Kingdom 1 and United Kingdom 2 in all 4 of the evaluation criteria. To determine if there was a significant difference that existed between the 5 locations in any of the categories, a one-way ANOVA test for the 4 evaluation criteria was examined. The 4 evaluation criteria examined were market similarity, strength of competitors, client application usage, and management risk at each of the 5 locations, UK 1, UK 2, European 1, European 2, and European 3. In the first set of criteria to be examined, the market similarity, I saw that the F value was higher than the F critical value. This would indicate that there was a significant difference in the data set. Also noticed is the p-value, which was very small and would indicate that the probability of getting a different result would be very unlikely. In the second set of criteria, the strength of competitors, I found that the F value was higher than the critical value. This would indicate that there was a significant difference in the data set. I noticed that the p-value was very small and would indicate that the probability of getting a different result was very unlikely. In the third set of criteria, the client application usage, I found that the f-value was higher than the f-critical value. This would indicate that there was a significant difference in the data set. I also noticed that the p-value was very small, which would indicate that the probability of getting a different result would be very unlikely. In the final set of criteria that I examined, the management risk, I found that the f-value was higher than the critical value. This would indicate that there was a significant difference in the data set. Also, that the p-value was very small, which would indicate that the probability of getting a different result would be very unlikely. Using a Monte Carlo analysis, a statistical technique that is used to estimate the possible outcome of an uncertain event, I carried out 52 trials selecting high, average, and low values using the assigned probabilities of each data set. When comparing these results, I identified minor, median variances for the EU locations, but for the UK locations, the variances were higher. From a holistic point of view, the UK mean sales were much higher, but realistically, they are about even with the EU sales. To understand what may happen in the future, I used a trend analysis of past data to spot patterns and better predict the future. With the historical data available, I used the past performance to get a reading of the current rate of revenue per location and licenses per region. After plotting the data and adding a actual linear trend line, I could see how fast the rate is increased or decreased. The challenge was to make projections from raw data with the rates and trends that are not immediately obvious, but mixed up with seasonal variations. EU2 is the region with the most acceleration, using exponential smoothing, which allowed a 3-year forecast to be possible with different outcomes depending on the alpha variable. Due to the lack of month-by-month information, the seasonality of sales was not able to be determined, which could have provided a more comprehensive forecast of what each year had in store. Setting the alpha at the lower end with a value of zero point 0.2 replicated the data 1 year further ahead and then forecasted to the 3 years after 2019 ended at extremely low values, which would likely be inconsistent with the actual sales and licenses of those years that would be produced. Setting alpha at zero point 0.6 saw the forecast throughout 2010 to 2019 remain relatively median for all of the data, but then trail off to lower values again by 2022. When setting alpha at zero point 0.9, the progression to a lower value in 2022 went away and ended on a value that would be more likely to occur. The forecast line at zero point 0.9 did not match up well with the actual results throughout 2010 to 2019, ending up producing a relatively straight line. To determine what the sales mix of sales to maximize profitability would be, I considered some restraints. The first constraint that was considered was that development activity of the various software applications that would not exceed 5,750 hours of development time. To mitigate the increase in development hours, it was preferred that all development efforts focus on at least one unit of scheduling, route optimization, and fuel optimization software, and spend at least twice as many hours developing the maintenance plan software as was spent on the scheduling software. These variables greatly reduce the development hours to 5,125, which was an 11% decrease from those of the baseline development hours. When interpreting research findings, I assessed whether the findings may have occurred by chance. I used hypothesis testing as a systematic way for deciding whether the results of the research supported the theories which applied to a population. Hypothesis testing involved a four-step process. Beginning with the analysis, I created two hypotheses that contradict each other so that only one can be right. Step two and three involved outlining the experiment plan and conducting the experiment to collect the data. And the fourth step I used was to reject one of the hypotheses to determine which one was true in the test. When reviewing the market similarity data after performing an ANOVA, I could see that the F value was higher than the F critical value, meaning there was a significant difference among the five locations. The p value was additionally low, so I could tell that the probability of getting a different result was low. So in this case, the alternative was the correct hypothesis. When reviewing the strength of competitors' data after performing an ANOVA, I could see that the F value was higher than the critical value, meaning there is a significant difference among the five locations. The p value is additionally low, so I could tell that the probability of getting a different result was low. In this case, the alternative was the correct hypothesis. When reviewing the strength of competitors' data after performing an ANOVA, I could see that the F value was higher than the F critical value, meaning there was a significant difference among the five locations. The p value is additionally low, so I could tell that the probability of getting a different result was low. In this case, the alternative was the correct hypothesis. When reviewing the client application usage data after performing an ANOVA, I could see that the value is higher than the F critical value, meaning there is a significant difference among the five locations. The p value is additionally low, so I could tell that the probability of getting a different result was low. In this case, the alternative hypothesis was also correct. When reviewing the management data after performing an ANOVA, I could see that the F value was higher than the F critical value, meaning that there is a significant difference among the five locations. The p value was additionally low, so I could tell that the probability of getting a different result was low. And in this final case, the alternative was also the correct hypothesis. The analysis performed for the International Expansion Project consisted of many steps, and the recommendations were broken down the statistical analysis performed. When examining the data and decision tree analysis, the pros of expanding in the EU regions are that there is a higher and steady probability of obtaining expected sales, but the cons are that the support costs are much higher in these regions. The pros of expanding into the UK regions are that the support costs are low while expected sales are still high, but the probability of achieving these expected sales is slightly lower than the EU regions. With this information, I recommended the following: expansion into the EU regions for decently high expected sales while maintaining low support costs was a bit of a riskier, low probability. Expansion into the EU regions for a stronger probability of achieving higher expected sales but incurring higher support costs. Maybe the Monte Carlo simulation helped me with the quantitative analysis to estimate the probabilities of uncertain events, risk management, and decision making. The recommendation based on the Monte Carlo simulation for the international expansion were a competitive or market study which compares the company's offerings and operations to industry rivals in new markets by investigating the new market, a comprehensive study considering the market size and development potential, customer base, customer attitudes, market channel research, market investment analysis, the status of the economy, and other factors. A strategy for localizing infrastructure that outlines the need, desire, and techniques for establishing a compliant local and regional presence. Hiring overseas personnel and executives, locating local vendors, assessing legal, regulatory, and tax statuses, and situating a physical facility or base if necessary are all part of infrastructure planning. Starting with 6 to 12 months of devoted launch resources aligned with the overall company plan and creating a top-down budget. Increase the budget to accommodate for all 3 years of ongoing expansion assistance with budget consumer price index tracked monthly. Create a timetable with achievable yet competitive commitment dates to guide the overall expansion. Ensure that the schedules align with the existing corporate strategies and goals. The linear programming analysis helped me with the quantitative analysis to estimate the uncertainties of events, risk management, and decision making. The actions recommended for the software development are develop at least one unit of scheduling, route optimization, and fuel optimization software, and spend twice as many hours developing the maintenance plan software and the scheduling software. Utilizing the new software tools to reduce the development hours needed for the scheduling, route optimization, and fuel optimization software applications. Perform a competitive or market study that compares the company's offerings and operations to industry rivals in the new market by investing the new target market's health and landscape. A comprehensive market study considers the market size and development potential, customer bases, customer attitudes, market channel research, market investment analysis, and the status of the economy. Formulate a strategy for localizing infrastructure that outlines the need, desires, and techniques for establishing a compliant local and regional presence. In conclusion, the research demonstrated that the results of the analysis performed using various statistical and forecasting methods on the international expansion project were sound. Using financial information, ranked criteria from surveys, and decision-making methods made the information more reliable. The results concluded that the less risky approach was in the EU data and would yield less risky results. The approach in the UK data suggested a high risk, high reward, resulting in more risk. The pros and cons based on the time value of money is another factor to consider when making decisions, as both paths may not necessarily be bad paths to take. The locations, when considering the different rankings from the 4 survey criteria, were sufficiently different. From this data, the team was able to make data-driven recommendations regarding the international expansion project. However, the other statistical methods gave the edge to the EU location for expansion. It is from this lens that a manager who is committed to HRO principles can use these tools to make an informed decision. All in all, the analysis was a success and provided the information needed to make sound organizational decisions. Thank you.